As you guys know, my name is Josh Dennett. I am here to give you a 10-minute training for my BA 457 course on Alaska earthquake safety. The first thing I want to talk about here are prominent disasters for Alaska. Here are the top 6. On the top of the list is earthquakes, then comes tsunamis, flooding, volcanoes, as well as landslides and wildfires. Now the reason that earthquakes is on the top of this list, as well as the topic of this conversation, is because of how common they are in the state of Alaska. In fact, there are more earthquakes in Alaska than in the rest of the United States combined. Now the next thing I wanted to do is kind of get a feel of how much you guys know about this, or if you've ever participated in this type of thing before. So my initial question is, by a show of hands, who here has been affected by a disaster in Alaska? Okay, so it's pretty split. Some of you guys have, some of you haven't. Now what about any of the ones that were affected? Did you guys make a emergency kit by any chance? No? Okay, that's pretty common as well. And what about any type of preparation at all, even just talking about the incident? Was there any of that going on? Nope. Okay. It's okay, that is to be expected. Usually people do not actually talk about the disasters until afterwards. So in order to stay a step ahead, we need to start talking about disasters and preparing for it beforehand. And that is exactly why I'm giving this presentation here. Now, in order to protect ourselves from earthquakes, we need to know the common things that result from earthquakes. This is a list of some. It will not include everything that's going to happen, but it just is kind of the major things that will happen in a moderate to severe earthquake. So the first thing on the list is the loss of electricity. With the loss of electricity, you may not be able to make food, or you may not have heat. It just makes things a little more difficult, something you got to think about. Destruction or even just damage to a structure, to your home or your workplace, as well as closure of public communication. So you may not be able to get anywhere if you don't have a vehicle, or even if you have a vehicle, the roads may look like this and you may not be able to drive anywhere because they're all broken up and split. I also have closures of supermarkets on there. This is very important. You may not be able to get food. You are going to have to be prepared and have that food beforehand. And then the last 2 things on my list are fire and tsunamis. And the reason I have fire up there is because it is very common to have a fire with any sort of damage to a structure, especially structural damage. And tsunamis, as you guys well know, will affect the coast states if there's a large enough earthquake. Now, preparation is the way to make these disasters as easily handled as possible. We can do this with several different ways, but to help this process, you can go to a variety of different areas. You can go talk to your local emergency management agency, as well as get on the internet. There's books about it. If you also would like to download, there's apps for your cell phones. You can do that. And I personally have downloaded an app. There's 2 that I am familiar with. One that was put on by FEMA, and the other one that was put on by the American Red Cross. Both of which are very helpful, and they have all sorts of information, forms where all you have to do is fill in the information and you are ready. And it helps you prepare for sure. But even just those apps, they'll give you a list of different things you should include in your emergency kit. They'll give you instruction on how to administer first aid, as well as tell you where to go or what you need to submit to receive assistance and help in recovery after the earthquake. Now, we want to make a kit. That is the first step, and this is a very, very important step. Now, every kit will be slightly different, but what the point is to have resources ready and on hand during a disaster. Now, you also need to make plans, make a communication plan. You know, normal communication may not be able to be used. Maybe there's a bunch of telephone lines down, you never know. So you need to be able to contact the people you love and coordinate with them, regardless of not being able to use your cell phones or your home phones. Have a meeting place. And this kind of rolls into having an evacuation plan. So say you're all in separate areas, you and your family are split, but you need to get in contact. You need to have that meeting place to where you can go. Or even if you're in just separate rooms of the house and it starts to happen, afterwards you need to know where you need or where to go so that you can talk to your family about it. Like I said, evacuation plan. If you cannot stay in your home, it'd be nice if you had a specific area where you were going to go to after and a place that you could feel safe. And practicing. Practicing is huge. If you don't practice, then you may not know what to do. You know, say I make a plan and I set this stuff out, and 15 years, there's a big earthquake. Well, if I haven't practiced it in 15 years, odds are I'm not going to remember exactly what to do, and things could end up badly. So there are a variety of elements that you can put in your emergency kit. Not every kit is going to be the same. In fact, they're all going to be very different. And this is just a general guideline of what you should have, but you can have lots more, and you don't necessarily have to have all of the above, but anything more you could possibly have will help. First couple things on here are food and water. Now, you need to have at least 3 days of food and water. And what the designated amount is 1 gallon of water per person per day. So 3 gallons of water set up. Now the foods, you want to make sure it's non-perishable. You can't have something that is going to go bad in a matter of weeks. You want something that'll last, 6 months, or at least several months. Every 6 months you should check your kit, and you should exchange the water, put different water in there, as well as double check all your food is still good. You can have things like canned foods, stuff like that. It keeps for a long period of time. But keep in mind also, if you have canned foods, it's not going to do you any good unless you have a can opener or some way of opening it. The next couple of things on the list are flashlights and a radio. A flashlight is something that's going to be very useful if the electricity is out and it's dark, especially in a place like Fairbanks in the winter where it's dark all the time almost. And a radio can prove to be a very, very pivotal piece. A lot of times information about the emergency is broadcasted on the radio after an event and give you information, what to do, where to go, that kind of stuff. So it's very helpful. Another thing you should have is medical supplies, a first aid kit in case somebody gets scraped. I'm not expecting you to be a doctor and have that much supplies, but just enough that you can do the minimum and you can help the people that have no other way of helping themselves. Another thing is prescriptions. If you have certain medical conditions and you have a prescription, you need those pills. Those need to be in this kit as well. Now, clothing and blankets are the next thing on the list. This is obviously important. You need something to keep you warm. I would actually suggest, instead of a blanket, to have a sleeping bag. The sleeping bag you can get rated to whatever temperature you're going to be exposed to. Here in Fairbanks, I need something that if I'm caught in the winter and it's 40 below, it's going to keep me warm. So a sleeping bag, I can easily go choose one that will keep me warm at 40 below. A heat source or a generator. It's fairly common for Alaskans to have a generator, but you need this. Not necessarily need it, but you need some way of heating and keeping yourself warm. It is definitely something that could help. It could give you electricity, which could then allow you to cook again, give you heat. But also just any other type of heat source, whether it's a propane heater or maybe a wood stove, just something like that that can keep your home warm, keep your family snug. The last thing on my list is fire extinguisher. Like I said, it's very common for fires to occur, so you want to be able to make sure you can maintain that fire if one is to occur, not further damage the area you're at. And the last thing I want to talk about is what to do during an earthquake. And it all depends on where you're at when this event occurs. So if you're indoors, you want to follow this step-by-step thing here. You want to drop, you want to cover. And when they say cover, all they're saying is you put your hands, so you're covering your neck, as well as protecting your head. If you can, get under a desk or something, a table, just anything that'll help block falling debris. Now the last thing they say is hold on. You know, if you have something sturdy, you can hold on to it until the shaking is over. Now if you're outdoors, you got to worry about falling debris, so you get away from buildings, you get away from power lines, stuff like that that could possibly fall on you. And then once again, you do the drop, cover, and hold on method. Now if you're in bed, this is kind of a different ordeal. When you're in bed, you need to just stay in bed, pretty much. What happens is oftentimes if you're in bed, it's dark out, and the room is going to be dark, so you running around and trying to get under something is only going to cause more danger to you. So stay in bed, get your pillow, put it over your face, kind of block your face and your neck, try and protect yourself as good as you possibly can. Oftentimes, if people get out of bed and they try to get out of the house, or they try to do something, they'll end up getting hurt, and it could have been avoided altogether. If you're in a vehicle, obviously it's going to be very hard to drive a vehicle when the road might be, waving. That's not, the ground is shaking, so you need to pull over as fast as you can, but as safely as you possibly can, so that way you can be safe. You also need to worry about falling debris. You need to be aware of your surroundings so that you don't stop right next to a building and have the building collapse on you. So, thank you for coming out and watching my presentation. I hope you learned something, and thanks again.